not all fun and games, by the way, when we're studying suffering, just so you know. But I'm a person who likes ideas. I like thinking and reading and looking things up on the internet. And I've been studying the nature of the universe for a long time. It's a mystery, and I'm getting closer. And all I need now is a degree in theoretical physics. Yeah, coming. Okay, so for this homily, I was reading a lot about the nature and problem of suffering. Beautiful ideas. So on Tuesday evening of this week, my nephew was afflicted with a terrible illness, an agonizing illness. He languishes in the Jubilee Hospital. On the way home, my husband hit a deer, and the car is quite badly damaged and might be written off, but and then the next day we were victimized by a financial fraud. So suffering comes to us quickly, horribly, unexpectedly, and with many other adverbs. And it gets very real. So outside of the realm of ideas, we come to reality. So here's the definition of suffering. There's an event, and then there's a response. So they can be disconnected, like the event, and then your emotional response is the suffering. The suffering can include pain, confusion, fear, other kinds of destabilization. Buddhism and other psychologies suggest there can be a little pause between the action and the response. And that the suffering can be eased by developing practices like disciplines of the mind, like gratitude, optimism, and other strategies. So why I decided to do this homily, I was very touched by a pebble that was presented a while ago by a member of our congregation of sadness for the wars in the world right now. So I thought, well, let's just talk about it, and maybe we can find some resources. I think actually the song we just sang said a lot of it. So we're all in this together, and I hope that you're having a good day so you don't mind coming to some of these topics. So from an early age, I was aware of the suffering caused to individuals by world events. Our parents and grandparents came out of a wreckage of war, washing up in Canada, but carrying their unacknowledged trauma. Also, as a child, my parents took in what we called at the time native foster children. So they had tragic lives, and I'm sure they still do. And we were perpetrators. It's not easy to remember that you were a perpetrator. And it is only now that I really understand the suffering, the violence and poverty that they came out of. But early November is a good time to consider suffering, and here we have a visual of the Day of the Dead.
Oh, sorry. My apologies. I'm looking for what it could possibly be. I'm so sorry, Joy. There it is.
Yeah, look at this. Okay, early November is a time of Halloween, All Souls Day. This is a picture of El Dia de Muertos. Is that how you say it? Muertos. That's the Day of the Dead. And this is how the Mexicans commemorate the Day of the Dead. I love their skeleton images. They have feasts. They bring gifts to the dead and to each other. They have home altars, and they give people things like candy skulls. I just love that celebration. Is there one for Wiccan?
Oh yes, it's Samhain. I've done.
Samhain.
Yeah.
Is that the end of October?
Yeah, it's the 31st when the veil is really thin and you can contact your ancestors.
So the veil is thin right now, and we can contact our ancestors. And it seems to me like this kind of festival can be part of the solution, a really fantastic ritual. All religions address the problem of suffering, and it's a vast topic. So here's a booklet that explains, I got from Peter, that explains how different religions address the problem of suffering, and every spiritual tradition has to address this with some kind of theory or philosophy. Because
Can you read the title for the Zoom?
this is called Suffering, Can It Lead to Hope and Joy? A Multi-Faith gathering with knowledgeable speakers from 8 faith perspectives, including Peter. Peter's perspective is in here too. It's very pragmatic. I'm sure you're not surprised. It's like we've got to fix things up, right? Okay, let's go on to the book of Job. This is a picture of Job, and has anyone read the book of Job recently? Or yeah, it's really interesting. So, Job is a successful man. He's very devout. He has many wives and children and lots of wealth. God and Satan have a conversation, and Satan challenges God. He says, Job's only devout because he's successful. Let me strip everything away and we'll see what happens. So God says, okay, go ahead with that. Think about that, God. That's our God. So Satan strips Job of all his wives and children, and sees what happens. He also, just for fun, inflicts on him a painful skin condition. And there is Job sitting on a dung heap, scraping at his boils with a piece of broken pottery. Well, that is sometimes where we're at, right? And, so Job's friends, those are his friends there, they come to visit. They're not very helpful. They explain to Job that maybe he did something wrong to cause all this to befall him. And I think some of us probably have had that experience ourselves. Job bitterly cries out, but eventually says, naked I came into this world, naked I leave. The Lord giveth, the Lord taketh. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And then Job's wealth is restored, and he has many more wives and 10 children. So, God, hey? Scary, okay. But I really love this book because to me there is value for me in simply experiencing like what the heck just happened, what the fudge, and that's Mennonite swearing. Yes. Sometimes it feels as though God and the devil are conspiring against us. Like why, when I'm doing a homily about suffering, did so many things start to go wrong in my life? Is that God or Satan? We'll see. But anyway, I think there can be some benefit on relinquishment. This is it. We can cry out. Also in the New Testament, apparently we can achieve salvation, we suffer on earth, and we'll have our reward in heaven. All right, that's pretty good too, but sometimes I wonder about that. So onward. Okay, let's see Buddha. Oh, this is the Buddha, and I love Buddhism because the central premise is life is suffering. The cause of suffering is dissatisfaction. There's a way out, and it's the Eightfold Path. This is a religion, but also a system of thought. So the suffering of suffering. This is intractable old age, illness, and death, unavoidable. Hard for baby boomers, because remember, don't trust anyone over 30. If we just do Pilates, we'll be okay, right? So in early 2020, I had a painful surgery, and in the middle of the night, wandered the hospital of VGH, feeling nauseated, began to vomit, and it came to me, this is the suffering of human life, and I'm experiencing it. And then a medical helper came and he held a little thing, a bowl under my face, and I thought, I had another insight, which was, when we suffer, helpers arise. And to me, this is a good thought, and I'm sure you've had, that helpers do arise, which is a nice feature, and something we can actually count on, more so than heaven, maybe. Anyway, he was really nice about it, and I thought, wow, people work in hospitals, they really care, that's amazing. The second cause of suffering for Buddhism is anicca, constant impermanence, leading eventually to the loss of everything. Wow. And our personal afflictive states are the third cause of suffering. And here I've greatly benefited. And this, my teacher said, seeing clearly with mindfulness brings the greatest happiness, which is peace. The afflictive states of greed, hatred, and delusion cause us to perpetrate actions of terrible harm to others. The hope is they can be mitigated with awareness, which reduces suffering to some extent, and the development of compassion, that we can see others clearly, so that now I'm a less awful person than I was before. Anyway, so I really have benefited from those thoughts and practices. Psychology. So, Sigmund Freud said it would be helpful to transform neurotic misery to ordinary unhappiness. That's the promise of psychology. Anyway, we can get some help through one-on-one therapy. I think we've probably all done that. And the therapist can give us some perspective on ourselves and how we're approaching our lives. And now there's been a beautiful shift in psychology where it's moving away from just the individual to acknowledge that that we're in a culture and the whole culture is suffering. So we have trauma from many generations, which can take away from some of the self-blame and trying to fix ourselves alone, because it's not me alone that needs to be fixed, it's many other things, so that's helpful. We are embedded in class culture and history, and everything we do is in relation to it. So mysticism, oh yeah, I love the ideas of mysticism, and I met a medium yesterday, and I'm really excited to meet with her, or maybe contact the spirit world. So we are in mysteries. We don't understand how life was animated. We don't even know that. Like how did chemistry and physics turn into organisms that replicate themselves? Like the presence of beneficial mycelium, what do we really know about who we are and what this suffering all means? And some people feel surrounded by angels and other mystical healers, which I think is very interesting. So there's this whole smorgasbord of approaches out there, perspectives, and I'm interested in our discussion how what you have chosen as your forms of relief. So when we suffer, we become afraid, panicked, we resist, and I'm wondering, are there benefits from our trouble and pain? For me, when we lived with a foster child, I had no empathy. As a 9-year-old, all I saw was the loss of my personal space and parental attention. Plus my parents, who were very young, coming out of the war, had no capacity to raise 3 children, let alone what were they doing with these very troubled children from bad circumstances. But I now see the situation much more clearly, and I understand the historical perspective, and I feel really terrible about how they were victimized in racist Winnipeg culture in the 1960s, so I can support the struggle for justice, totally. I also have attended self-help groups and 12-step programs, and that can be a good way of helping other people. That is helpful for individuals to feel like of use to others. I have to say, in terms of does suffering, what does it do for us, or how can we benefit from it? Some people do not benefit from suffering. I know many people whose personalities were deformed by their horrible experiences, and towards them, I don't give them advice. I just try and have a nice time and cheer them up a bit, and that's all that can be done. And sometimes I beg for mercy for them, and hope that has some help. So how about our community? I refer back, the chalice. Last image. This is the Unitarian chalice, and we gave you the idea it can be the container for our emotional situations, our grief and suffering as we express them. And I've seen people here share their troubles and get some help. So thank you very much. I also really encourage fun, lunches, potlucks. What other things do we do for fun? Music, thank you, healing circles, and other kinds of things that will bring us together. We're also aware of world suffering and local issues, and I see people at rallies and working towards social justice. So I'm encouraged by the opportunities here, and I look forward to continuing my involvement and our strength as a community. Thank you.
Beautiful, Julie. Oh,